Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to do this really pretty baby blanket. You can make this any size that you like, and once again, one last tip: if you don't like stitch counts, do the chain to the length that you want it. Do the chain to the length that you want it and work the pattern, and you're going to finish on a V-stitch. You're going to finish on a V-stitch, skip 2 and do 5 stitches. So once you've done your last V-stitch, you need 5, 6, 7 stitches. You need 7 stitches at the end. That keeps your pattern symmetrical as well. So to do this pattern, I'm using a solid colour so you can see it better in the video. Now leave a long enough tail that if you lose your stitch count, you can make more stitches with the tail. So the stitch count is 7, then add an extra 5. Don't worry if it doesn't work out for you. You can take any stitches you've got extra, you can take them out. And if you don't have enough, you can add them in with this tail. Sometimes when you're working a pattern, you might accidentally skip 3 or skip 1 or skip whatever when you're doing the foundation row. So don't worry, because you can use that to make extra stitches. Now I'm going to do sets of 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I've done a few sets of 7. I'm only doing a small sample to show you how to do this. It's a really quick pattern. And I'm going to do an extra 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are to help keep the pattern symmetrical at each end. So into the 4th stitch from the hook, count 1, 2, 3 and 4. You're going to put 1 UK treble crochet. That's a double crochet if you're in the USA. So that chain of 3 counts as your first stitch. So we've got 1 and 2. Into the next stitch, you're going to put another one. We need 5 in the line. So we've got that chain counts as 1, 2, 3. One more is 4. And one more is 5. So we've got our 5 stitches. You're going to skip 2, 1, 2. Now into this stitch, we're going to do what's called a double V stitch. So what we're going to do is we're going to put 1 treble crochet. This is a double crochet if you're in the USA. 1 and 1 more. Then we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and put 2 more in there. So this is a double V stitch. 1 and 2. So it's like a V and a V, a double V stitch. You're going to skip 2, 1, 2. So into the next stitch, you're going to do a UK double crochet. That's a single if you're in the USA. We're going to make the little, it's called a picot or picot. I can't remember which way you pronounce it, but someone will tell me. So we're going to do I'm going to call it a chain stitch. So in skip 2, 1, 2, into the next one, put 1 double crochet or single, whatever country you're in, chain 3, 1, 2 and 3. Into the next stitch, do another double crochet or single, whatever country you're in. So that's you done that little chain there. So your pattern is made up of your V-stitch, skip 2, and then this chain stitch, skip 2, a V-stitch, skip 2, and that chain stitch, or picot, a little picot. So we're going to skip 2 and do a double V-stitch. 2 stitches into the same stitch, 1, 2, chain 2, 1, 2, and 2 into the same stitch, and do that double V-stitch. And what you can also do is leave a comment what you think about the colour of the video, the sound, and the focus, because I've got myself a new camera. I'm using a different one altogether, and I was able to lock the focus on it, so it's not going to go up and down anymore. You can see that that stitch is squashing that a little bit. If your stitch count doesn't work, it could be because you maybe not count that one if it's too squashed. So make sure you pull your V-stitch over. So we're going to skip 2 and do the chain stitch. So skip 2, do a double crochet, 3 chain, 1, 2 and 3, and a double crochet in the next stitch. These are single crochets if you're in the USA. Now we're going to finish on this V-stitch, and I've deliberately not done enough so that I can show you how to add stitches. So we're going to skip 2 and build a V-stitch in here. Now we need 7 stitches left at the end. We need to finish on a V-stitch and have 7 stitches left. But I've deliberately not put enough in so I can show you how to make more stitches if you don't have enough. So I've done my V-stitch. So what I should have is 7 stitches left. Skip 2 and then do my 5 singles for my border. I don't have enough. So what you can do is you finish your pattern on that V-stitch, and it should be skip 2 and then 5 singles. I don't have another 5 stitches, so I'm going to put my hook into my last stitch like this, and I'm going to crochet 5 more stitches. So don't count that one because that's your 1 and 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to do one more just so that it'll lock my stitch in. So now I have enough to finish my pattern. So technically you don't need to count the stitches. Make a big long chain. Make sure you've got a tail on the end that you can create more stitches if you need to. So we're finishing this pattern on this double V-stitch. We're going to skip 2, 1 and 2. I'm going to do 5 treble crochets along. These are double crochets if you're in the USA. So that's 1 into the next one is 2. 1 into the next one is 3. I should have enough. 1 into the next one is 4. And 1 into the next one is 5. And that gives you your little pattern. Now this is just a sample. I'm just showing you a sample. You'll continue the pattern. You'll do your skip 2, a V-stitch, skip 2, then you'll do that chain stitch, skip 2 V-stitch, skip 2 chain stitch, skip 2 V-stitch, skip 2 chain stitch, and then skip 2 and finish on a V-stitch. Skip 2 and do 5 singles along. Now the pattern is really easy from here. It's really easy. Chain 2, quite slack. 1, pull it up a little bit, and 2. And turn your work around. So that chain 2 counts as your first stitch, and I've done 2 chain that's slack so that you don't end up with big bobbles at the end. You don't end up with a bulge. So that's why it's only chain 2. Make sure you chain 2 slack. So into the next 4 stitches we're going to put 1 stitch into the next 4. 1 into the next one, one into the next one, and one into that last one. We should have 5 along. So we've got that chain 2, that's 1 stitch, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you'll always have 5 on this end and 5 on the other end, and that makes the border up the sides of the blanket. It makes the border up the side, so you don't need to work a border. It's already there. Now you're going to skip to 1 and 2 and in to the middle of your V-stitch. You're going to skip 2 stitches and in to the middle here you're going to do 1 double crochet or single if you're in the USA, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and in to there again. You're going to do your chain stitch inside the middle of the V-stitch, and you're going to do your V-stitches in this chain. So skip 2 stitches and in to the chain, build your V-stitch. So that's 1 and 2, chain 2, 1, 2, and 1 and 2. So we've done our double V-stitch. Move over to this one and you're going to put the chain stitch in. So 1 double or single crochet, whatever country you're in, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1 into there again. Move to your little chain stitch here, your little picot chain stitch here. You're going to do your V-stitch. So that's 1 and 2, chain 2, 1, 2, and 2 more stitches, 1 and 2. Move to this one and you're going to do the little chain stitch in the top of this one. Double crochet, 3 chain, and double crochet. And they're singles if you're in the USA. So over to your chain and you're going to put your double V-stitch in. So that's 1 and 2, chain 2, 1, 2, and 2 more, 1 and 2. Over to the V-stitch, you're going to put your little chain, 1, 2, 3, or the picot, whatever you call that stitch. So we've done that there. Now we've got our 5 stitches here. So we're going to do our 5 stitches along for the border. 1 into the next one is 2, 1 into the next one is 3, 1 into the next one is 4, and 1 into the top of this stitch here. Just push your hook through that chain stitch. You're going to pull a little bit and you're going to chain 2, slack 1 and 2. Don't make them too tight, and turn your work and work along. So in the chain stitch, you're going to put the double V-stitch, and in your double V-stitch, you're going to do that chain. And that's what you're going to do with this pattern. You're going to keep repeating it. I'll do one more row and I'll show you how to do the top and the bottom of the border. 1 into that top of that chain. Make sure you put that in, that one, into the top of that chain of 2. And as you can see, it gives you a much neater edge. You're not getting that. When you do a chain 3, you're not getting that bulky one that's sticking out like that. It's nice and straight. So we're going to do 2, chain 1 and 2, quite slack, and turn. Now I'm going to show you how to do the border on the top and the bottom. So we're going to do our make sure we've got our 5 stitches along. So that counts as 1, and that's 2. That one's 3. That one's 4. And 1 in there is 5. Now what we're going to do here, what we're going to do now is just to make sure we've got the same amount of stitches along the top as we will on the bottom. So into the 2 stitches of your double V stitch, you're going to put 1 stitch into each one. 1 into there and 1 into there. Skip the chain and put 1 into each of these stitches. That's what you're going to do to build your border along your top. Into here, you're going to put 1 stitch into this chain, put 1, and into the V stitch, 1 in each stitch, here and here. Don't put any in there. So 1 in there, and 1 in the next one. I skipped a chain and I put 1 into the next stitch, and 1 into the next stitch. 1 in the chain, 1 into this stitch, 1 into the stitch. Skip the chain and the double V stitch and just move over to the 2 stitches. 1 and 1 in there. Put 1 in the chain and then 1 into each of these stitches. Skip the chain of the V stitch and put 1 into each stitch. You can leave the top with the pattern on if you want. You don't have to do the border across the top. So these 5 stitches you're going to put 1. That's 1 into each stitch. 2, 3, 1 into that stitch is 4. And 1 into that chain, the top of that chain of 2. 1 into there. Chain 2 slack, 1 and 2 and turn. And you're going to put 1 into each stitch along. And because this is quite a stretchy stitch, your top will be nice and straight because we didn't put a stitch in the chain in the V stitch. You're going to put 1 into each stitch along and do as many rows as you want. I did 4. So that one is 1 and then I did 3 more. So I've put 1 stitch in, and remember that chain of 2. So I did 4 rows on my blanket, but that's how you pick up the rows for your bottom and the top. So on this is the top. I'll show you how to do the bottom. Now you'll just cut your yarn and pull it through that loop. Just pretend you've done your great big blanket or the one that you want for your size. And then you're going to turn it around. And this is the bottom. Remember, this is the bottom. So we're going to turn it upside down. And get your hook back. Now where the tail is, just put your hook through. And pull through the yarn. Leave enough of a tail to sew in. And I'm going to chain 2 slack stitches, 1 and 2. Now, in these 4 stitches, put 1 in the bottom of these 4 stitches. So that chain counts as your first stitch. So that's the second one. 1 into the bottom of there is 3. 1 into the bottom of this one. There should be a loop left to use. That's 4. and 1 into the bottom of this one makes 5. In the chain space, you're going to put 2 stitches in the chain space, 1 and 2. You're going to go over to the other chain space, squash that together, over to the other chain space and put 2 in, 1 and 2. Into the middle of your little picot stitch, the one that looks round, put 1 in the middle and then go to the chain space, that chain 2 space. This is the bottom of your blanket, so put 2 into that chain space. Just move your double V stitch in and go in to the next chain 2, into the chain spaces and put 2 stitches. Then put 1 into the bottom of that rounded one, it looks rounded now. Then over to the chain space and put 2 in, 1 and 2, work your way along. The next chain space, forget the double V stitch, don't put any into the double V stitch. 2 into the chain spaces and 1 into that round picot stitch here, into the bottom of there. Then the chain spaces, 1 and 2, and this should give you the same amount of stitches on the bottom as you've got on the top. So skip the double V stitch and into the chain spaces, 1 and 2. And you've got your 5 stitches along, you'll put 1 into the bottom of each of those. 1 into the next one is 2, 1 into the next one is 3, 1 into the next one is 4, and 1 into the bottom of that chain of 2 there. That's 5. You're going to chain 2 slack stitches, 1 and 2. Turn your work and you're going to put 1 into each stitch along and do 4 rows. That counts as row 1. You're going to do 3 more rows and that'll make your border on the bottom and the top and along the sides the same. So 1 into each stitch. So at the end, remember and put 1 into that chain of 2 that's there. You'll chain 2, 1, 2 and turn, and you'll do another 2. I did 4 rounds, and what that'll do, once your ends are all sewed in, sew in your ends and you'll have your little blanket. Absolutely beautiful. It's a beautiful little pattern as well. It's a stretchy stitch. It's a little bit stretchy. That's why I didn't put 1 in on the bottom into where the V-stitch was. And that's why I didn't put 1 into the top where the V-stitch was. Today I'm going to show you how to do these beautiful little baby hats. If you want a larger one to go from 3 to 6 months, then use a 4.5 hook and you'll get a bigger bonnet. And what you can also do is to do the back of the bonnet. So for this we'll start with 14, then you have 28, then after this row you'll have 42, and after this row you'll have 56. And you'll still have 56 when you do this row because you only put 1 into each stitch. If you want a bigger hat from a 6 to 12 months, you can put extra rounds on. you continue the increases. You can do this right up to toddler size just by adding extra rounds. But your last round will be 1 into each stitch. Now the back won't be flat by the time you do it. It'll be kind of rounded when you've done it. Then I'll work 11 rows of pattern, and I'll show you how to do that. So I'm going to show you how to do the bottom of the hat. We're going to start with a magic ring. Now you can, if you want, do a chain of 4 and join it, slip stitch into a little circle, but I'll show you how I do a magic ring. It pulls it in nice and tight. Put the tail end of the yarn down your hand and wrap it around. Turn your hand to the back and cross over the yarn. Just cross it over. Now put your hook under that one there and pull your working yarn through like this. So I'll show you again. You just need to use a few fingers if you want. So you've got your tail end at the front and wrap it around and cross it over. Then that's your tail end. This piece here on the bottom, pull the top piece through with your hook. Pull it through and then take your fingers out. Now gather it together and do a chain 1, and that's you got a magic loop. It's like a little lasso like that. You can do it this way. You can just loop it over like this and pull your hook through and pull your working yarn up as well. I'll show you that way again, as if you were going to do your first stitch. Just do a circle, pull your yarn through as if you were going to make your first stitch, but don't tighten it. Keep that big loop. So what you're going to do for this hat is we're going to chain 3. So 1, 2 and 3. That counts as your first stitch. Now in the UK, I'll zoom in a little bit. So that's your first stitch. What you're going to do into this ring, you're going to put 13 more stitches. We need 14 stitches altogether. That one there is your first one. So yarn over and in through the loop and pull through. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Yarn over and pull through 2 loops. So we've got 1 and 2 stitches. We're going to put, we need 14 all together. So that's 1 and 2. In the UK, this is a treble crochet, and if you're in the USA, it's a double crochet for you. So yarn over and into that loop. That's 3. We need 14. 4, 5, 'So I've got 14 in my circle. I'm going to pull the circle tight. I'm going to cut a piece off my tail. I don't need it that long. As long as you've got enough to sew in. Now in to that chain of 3 that you did at the beginning, you're going to slip stitch in to the top of that stitch. So you should have 14 stitches in here. What we're going to do is we're going to chain 2 slack stitches, 1 and 2. That's your first stitch. Now into that same space, you're going to put another one. That's 2. These are treble crochets if you're in the UK and Europe, and it's double crochets if you're in the USA or another country. Now into each stitch around, you're going to put 2 stitches. You're going to increase, and you should have 28 stitches. So yarn over into the next stitch. You're going to put 2 in. 1, and 2. 2 into the next stitch, 1 and 2, and work your way around. Put 2 into each stitch. You're going to increase from 14 to 28. So I've done my 2 into each stitch and I've got 28 stitches. So I'm going to slip stitch into the top of that chain of 2 that we did and slip stitch through. So I'm going to chain 2 slack stitches, 1 and 2. That's my first stitch. Into the next stitch we're going to increase by 2 stitches. So what we're going to do is we're going to be doing, so what that counts as your first stitch, so we're going to put 2 into the next stitch, do an increase in the next stitch, we should end up with 42 stitches once we've finished round 3. So 1 into the next stitch, we're going to increase on every second stitch for this row. So 2 into the next stitch, 1 and 2, 1 into the next stitch, 1, then 2 into the next stitch, all the way around. So I'll finish this round and I've got 42 stitches. So I'm going to slip stitch into the second stitch in that chain that we started with and pull through. Now the reason I'm only chaining 2 here is so that it doesn't look really conspicuous when you're doing a chain of 3. It kind of sticks up a little bit. So again we're going to do 2, chain 2, 1, 2, do them quite slack. So that's your first stitch, and we're going to work 1 more stitch into the next stitch. So this time we're going to work 2 stitches and then increase, work 2 stitches and then increase, and we should have 56 stitches by the time we've done this row. So we've got 1 in that counts as your first stitch, and 1 in this stitch. Now increase in the next stitch, 1 and 2. Now 1 into the next stitch, that's 1, 1 into the next stitch, and then increase in the third stitch. So that's 1 and 2. So we're going to increase in every third stitch this time. So I finished that round and I've got 56 stitches. I'm going to slip stitch into the second stitch of that chain and pull through. So we've got 4 rounds, 1, 2, 3 and 4. What we're going to do is I'm going to chain 2, 1 and 2. Now we're not going to increase for this size of hat. This is 0 to 3 months. If you want 3 to 6 months, so how to get a bigger bonnet is to do an extra round. I've done 1, 2, 3, 4 and an increase in every third stitch. If you want a 3 to 6 month, do 1 more round. You'll do 3 stitches and increase on every 4th stitch. You'll increase on every 4th stitch. Then you'll work 3, increase on the 4th, work 3, increase on the 4th. If you want a hat that'll fit a 6 month to a year old, you'll work 1 more round again. You'll work 4, then increase on the 5th round, 4 and increase on the 5th round. That's how you make a bigger hat. So I've got 56 stitches and I've done 1, 2, 3, 4 rounds. The last round is 1 into every stitch. 1 UK treble crochet, or that's a US double, into each stitch around. 1 into each stitch. Really easy. 1 into each of these stitches all the way around. Now if you're making the bigger size and you're going to do another increase row, you'll still do this one where you've got one into each stitch all the way around. So I've done that row where I've put one in to each stitch. Now don't worry if your hat is sitting up like this, because this hat does not have a flat back. I'll show you the one I've already made. So as you can see, the hat on the back is rounded. It's rounded. Now into the second stitch of that chain that I started with, I'm going to join my round. Join my round. Now I'm going to chain 2, 1, 2. Now what you're going to have to do now is we're going to count the pattern. Now in the hat, the stitch count is 5. What we're going to do is that chain 2 counts as your first stitch. And then we're going to skip a stitch and we're going to work the pattern. And the pattern in this one is you'll skip a stitch, you'll do a double V stitch, you're going to skip one stitch, and you're going to do over the next 2 that picot stitch to begin with. So you're going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you're going to need 5 stitches for the pattern. So what you're going to do is you're going to count in 5s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is to make sure that we've got enough stitches for the pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we're nearing the end and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 left. So what we need to do is, that's the end of the pattern, and we want to finish on a skip 1 and treble crochet. So count 5s all the way around till you're nearly finished. Then you're going to do skip 1 and treble crochet, and you're going to put a pin in it. So you're going to do in sets of 5 and then 2 more and put a pin in, just to keep the pattern correct. Now what we've got left is 1, 2, 3 stitches. If you're doing a bigger hat, you might have 4 or 5 left. Then you can add in another pattern. But because this hat has got 56 stitches, once we do the pattern, now it might sound a little bit daunting, but don't worry, I'm going to show you how to work the pattern around, and you'll see what I mean when we get to the end. I'm not going to have enough stitches here to do an extra pattern. We're going to skip 1 stitch, and into the next stitch, I'm going to put a double V stitch in. So skip 1, and into this stitch we're going to put 2 UK treble crochets. That's 1 and 2. These are double crochets if you're in the USA. Chain 2, 1, 2, and put 2 more in. 1 and 2. You're going to skip 1, then you're going to put a double crochet in here. If you're in the USA, it's a single crochet, but in the UK, this is called a double crochet. So do your double crochet, or single if you're in the USA. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3. We're going to make a picot stitch. I'll call it a chain stitch to make it easy. Into the next stitch, do another double crochet. That's a single crochet if you're in the USA. And this is where we're using 5 stitches. We've got our skip 1, the one we used here, that's 2. The skip 1 is 3. That stitch is 4, and that other stitch is 5. That's where the stitch pattern is with the 5 stitches. Skip 1 and do a V stitch in the next one. So that's 2 stitches, 2 chain and 2 stitches. All into that next stitch. Chain 2 and 2 more, 1 and 2. Skip 1 and you're going to do the picot over the next 2 stitches. So skip 1 and you're going to do a double crochet or a single if you're in the USA, chain 3, 1, 2 and 3, and 1 double into the next stitch. Then skip 1 and do your double V stitch, 1 and 2. It's called a double V stitch because it looks like 2 V stitches together. Chain 2 and 2 more, 1 and 2 into the same stitch. Skip 1 and do that little picot stitch or the chain 3, whatever one you want to call it. So skip 1, do a double crochet, chain 3, 1, 2 and 3, and a double crochet in the next stitch. Skip 1 and do your double V stitch all the way around. So I've almost worked my way around to my little pin. So remember, from here, when you've done that chain of 2, you'll start counting sets of 5 all the way around until you can't get 5 anymore. So I've got my V-stitch done, so it's skip 1, and I'm going to do that little chain or that little picot stitch. So a double or single crochet, whatever country you're in, skip 1 and do your double crochet, chain 3, 1, 2 and 3, and 1 into the next stitch, your little double crochet. Now you're going to skip 1 and then into the next stitch you're going to do a treble crochet. So skip 1 and do a treble. This is a double crochet if you're in the USA. Now we're going to leave those stitches there. We're going to leave them there. You're going to chain 2, 1, 2. I've got 1, 2, 3 stitches left. It's not enough to complete the pattern, so we're going to leave them. That'll become part of the neck. So you're going to chain 2 and turn. You're going to do, now in this chain of 3, I'm going to put my double V stitch. So straight in there and do 1 and 2. Then I'm going to chain 2, 1, 2, and put the other 2 in for that double V stitch, 1 and 2. Now over to the double V stitch that's here, you're going to put the chain stitch in. So a double crochet, that's a single if you're in the USA, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and a double crochet, or single, whatever country you're in. Over to the little chain 3 stitch and build your V stitch. 1 and 2, 2 stitches, 2 chain, 1, 2, and 2 stitches to make that double V stitch. Over to the double V stitch that's here, and you're going to put the chain stitch in. So double crochet, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and double crochet. And remember, these are singles if you're in the USA. It's the same stitch. And then your V stitch, and then your chain stitch, your V stitch, your chain stitch, V stitch and chain, V stitch and chain. And that is the pattern. I'm going to continue with my pattern. So I've got that chain stitch, so I need to put a V stitch in, your double V stitch in, 1 and 2, chain 2, and your double V stitch, 1, oops, and 2. Then we're at the V stitch here, so it's going to be the chain one. So one little stitch, 1, 2, 3 chain, and your little double or single crochet. Then your double V stitch and work your way around. When you get to the last one, you're going to chain 2 and turn. I'll show you that when I get to it. So I'm at my last stitch, and I'm going to do the double crochet, chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and my double crochet. And remember, these are singles if you're in the USA. So there is my chain of 2. So in the top of that chain of 2, I'm going to put a treble crochet. This is a double crochet if you're in the USA. Then I'm going to chain 2, 1, 2, do them quite slack and turn. And I'm going to work the pattern. So I've got, for my other hat, I did 12 rows of pattern. I've got 2 here. So we've got the chain of 3 one. So in there we put the double V-stitch. And then in the double V-stitch, we're going to put the little picot stitch, or that chain, whatever you want to call it, it goes in there. Then it's a double V-stitch, then the chain stitch, double V-stitch, and then the chain stitch. You're building it on top of each other. So I'm going to do another 10 rows. And when you get to the end, into that chain of 2, you're going to do 1 UK treble crochet, or that is a double crochet if you're in the USA. Chain 2 and turn, and keep working your pattern. If you need to put more on, you can. If you've done more rounds on the back, then you can put more on of this pattern. So I'm going to do the chain for my tying under the baby's chin. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain 30 stitches. You don't want it to be too long. You don't want it to be so long it's going to be dangerous. So I'm going to chain 30. 1, 2. So I've done a chain of 30. That should be enough to tie it. And the same on the other side. It'll be enough to tie it in a bow. So into each stitch, I'm going to put 1 double crochet. That's a single crochet if you're in the USA. 1 into each stitch along. And that should be thick enough to tie it into a bow under the baby's chin. Just put 1 into each stitch along. So for the tying, I've done 1 into each stitch. In the USA, that's a single crochet into each stitch. In the UK, it's a double crochet. It's the same stitch. Now what we're going to do down the side, into each of these spaces, we're going to put 2 UK treble crochets. These are double crochets if you're in the USA. So we're going to put 2 into each of these. It'll either be a chain of 2 or a treble crochet stitch or a double crochet stitch that's all the way down here. These are the ones where we did our last stitch, or we did a chain of 2 and turned. So put 2 into each one. So go to the next, sort of the last stitch that's here. Put 2, either UK trebles, USA doubles, into each of these spaces. And remember, into that last one there, and these stitches here, you're going to put 1 into each stitch along. One there. And then when you get to these chain spaces, you're going to put 2 into each of these spaces. So along here, I've got the 3 I had in the middle, 1 into that first treble that we did for here, and 1 into that very first 2 stitch here. Just make sure you've got the same amount up each side of your hat. So find that end stitch and put 2 stitches in. Right to the end. And 2 into this last one. 1 and 2. Then into the corner we're going to put a UK double crochet. This is a single crochet if you're in the USA. Then we're going to chain 30. This is the other tie. And 30. And again we're going to go into the second stitch along and we're going to put 1 UK double crochet into each stitch. This is a single crochet if you're in the USA or another country. 1 into each stitch along. And that's going to make the tie on the other side. Now you can just put ribbon around the bottom of the hat if you want. But not everyone's got ribbon. This is an easy way where you don't need to sew anything. You don't need to sew any ribbon in. Now I'm going to do my last stitch. And then I'm going to slip stitch just into the top of that very first or the very last treble crochet there. Cut the yarn so you've got enough to sew in. Pull the yarn through the loop, through that loop, and we're going to sew in the end. I've already sewed in the end. I've already sewed in the tail. I just sewed it in around there to hide it. So turn your hat inside out and we're just going to put a few stitches in. Just down here and back. Down and back just to hide this. Then we'll take that out. And this is the other one that I did in that Cutie Pie yarn. So it's a beautiful little hat, whether you use a variegated yarn or if you use just a normal double knitting. And this one is the one that matches the blanket. The blanket video, I'll pop them aside. The video for the blanket is already on the channel. It's already on if you have a look. If you want to support the channel, there is a link underneath the video where you can buy me a cup of coffee. Just for a few pounds, you can buy me a cup of coffee and the money goes towards the channel. And it actually does buy jars of coffee as well. I've got to keep up with my coffee when I'm doing my crochet and doing my videoing and doing the editing. Believe you me, I drink a lot of coffee. And any extra goes into the running costs of the channel. So thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. Please click on that bell icon and YouTube will tell you when I put up another tutorial. It's completely free to subscribe to the channel. If you want to become a member, there is a members button down there and you can do a monthly donation that also helps the channel as well. So until the next time, happy crafting and I'll see you all again soon. Goodbye.